Hey everyone, Rebecca back for the next episode of the Monday Mr. Money Mustache Motivation. If you're unfamiliar, Mr. Money Mustache is a financial independence retire early blogger, and I love his content, so I like to share it here on the channel. I always link to the blog post that we're discussing down in the description box below if you would like to take a look at it yourself and see some of the comments that his readers have commented about it. Today's blog post is especially relevant, I feel like, with what is going on in the world right now and the concept of risk. This one is titled, Pay Down the Mortgage or Invest More? It's a win-win question. And this was published way back in February 24th of 2012. So we'll dive right into this one, but again, I think it's definitely relevant for today. There's a thoughtful debate going on right now over in the Money Mustache forum where people are comparing different strategies for investing in rental houses. Some people prefer to save up the full purchase price of a house before plunging in and making the move. Others will make the buy using a mortgage, but then pay down the principal as aggressively as possible. Still others will borrow 75% or more of the purchase price, then leave the balance outstanding as long as possible, keeping more of their cash free to make additional leveraged investments. That's a landlord-specific example, and not all of us are interested in owning rental houses. Me either. But exactly the same thought process goes into deciding whether you should pay off your mortgage as quickly as possible or pump your surplus cash into stocks and other investments on the theory that the long-term return of the stocks is better than the 3.5% to 4.5% rates that US and Canadian mortgages are currently charging. It's a complicated question because to fully answer it, you need to consider risk, your personality type, how close you are to retirement, asset valuation and cash flow, and even make a stab at predicting the future. But there is still some good news. It's a win-win question since either of these strategies involve you putting away money in a productive place, which will tend to make you wealthier over time. The Mustachian way is flexible enough that it will make us all rich relatively quickly, so there's no need to lock onto one particular strategy as the only way to do it. But just for fun, let's consider a few different scenarios to compare the effects of payoff and leveraging. Strategy 1, the consumer who thinks he is an investor. Some of my less mustachian acquaintances like to talk confidently about the benefits of borrowing money. 3.5% is the cheapest money you'll see in a lifetime. I'm never paying down my mortgage. I'll just use my money to make more money. This statement is correct in general, but the problem is that it's often used to justify higher consumer spending rather than higher investment. Some people who have said this to me have expensive cars, bought on more of that brilliant low-interest credit, power boats, and lifestyles that burn most of their salary, but their investment accounts are smaller than even the value of the material things they have bought. These people would be much better off paying down the mortgage rather than buying additional Mercedes and iPads because they are currently using the leverage afforded by the mortgage to purchase liabilities rather than assets. To justify not paying off your mortgage, you have to demonstrate a genuine desire to get ahead through investment. That means having low living expenses, let's say equal to or lower than mine, and a correspondingly high savings rate, 50% or higher. At this point, I will grudgingly admit that you will probably do much better investing in index funds rather than paying off your mortgage. We'll get to this in the stock investor category later in this article. Strategy 2, the aggressive landlord. One of the moderators of the MFUMB forum is a guy named Joe. He's a fast-thinking, voraciously reading, fast-typing type of guy who is on the rocket path to financial independence. He correctly calculates that you can make money much faster when you carry a mortgage balance on your rental houses rather than buy them entirely in cash. Here's an excerpt from his explanation, edited slightly for compactness. Let's say houses cost $100K each and you have $100K to invest. You can put 25% down on the houses or 100% down on one house. Houses rent for $1,200 per month. Let's compare the two scenarios. We'll use the 50% rule, a conservative rule of thumb which assumes that about 50% of your gross rent will go towards vacancy, repairs, long-term capital maintenance, property management, taxes, insurance, etc. Mustachian landlords can easily beat this performance, but for now let's go with it. Scenario 1, 100% down, no mortgage payment. Your cash flow is $600 a month or $7,200 a year. Total for scenario 1, $7,200. Scenario 2, 25% down, 30-year mortgage. At current mortgage rates of 5%, current owner occupied is about 3.5%, investor is 5%. Your mortgage payment will be $402.62 principal and interest, $1,200 rent, $600 to 50% rule, $402.62 to mortgage, equals $197.38 a month cash flow per house, or $2,368.56 a year times 4 houses, which equals $9,474.24. Already you're making an extra $2,000 per year. But wait, we're also paying down that mortgage. Year 1, your tenants pay down $1,012.19 per house of mortgage, or an extra $4,048.76 that you gain in equity. Total for scenario 2, $13,523. So you make almost double in terms of equity gain plus cash flow by having mortgages. That's assuming no appreciation. If the house appreciates, you gain 4 times as much appreciation. If it drops, great, buy more houses. If you aren't buying places where the rents more than cover the expenses plus mortgages, don't buy them. Who cares what the value is if you're holding for long term? Even if you lose your job, you can cover the payments because the renters themselves more than cover the payments. But that's also counting having someone managing all those properties for you. That's counted in the 50% rule. If you want a side gig as a property manager, you can save yourself an extra $120 a month on scenario 1 or $1,440 a year. But if you landlord in scenario 2, you'll gain an extra $5,760 a year. Yes, you'll have 4 times the work managing 4 houses versus 1. But you have that choice. Let them be managed and pay for that, or manage yourself and pick up a few extra bucks than you can in scenario 1. On top of that, you also get mortgage interest write-off. So on top of $2,000 more cash flow, $4,000 principal paydown, 4 times appreciation potential, you can write off some of that cash flow. Plus, you'll have 4 times the depreciation, sheltering all that cash flow and perhaps protecting some of your W-2 income from your normal job. But if you develop the skill and understand the numbers, there are a few ways to make as much money so quickly. Strategy 3, the young stock investor. You're just getting started on saving for early retirement. You have a good career that's providing some surplus cash flow. But you're not interested in landlording, or you live in Silicon Valley or Vancouver where house prices are far too high to justify buying them as rentals, so you decide to invest in stocks. Over the long run, people who understand economics will generally agree that stocks will do better than the 3.5% return before inflation you get by paying off your mortgage. We'll leave the explanation to the stock market books, but most would predict about 7.5% before inflation, even given today's relatively high stock prices. Being sure to max out your 401k is even more important, especially for those with incomes over $50,000 a year due to the benefits of tax deferral and employer matching. Strategy 4, the conservative early retiree. You may notice that I speak favorably of strategies 2 and 3 above, and I have followed parts of them both over the years and benefited, even while living through the great financial crisis, the U.S. housing crash, and 2 major recessions. But now I operate on an all-cash basis. I have no mortgage on my primary house or the rental house, and I avoid the temptation to borrow to expand my investments further. And many other retirees, both early and late, take the same path. Why is this? Number 1, I am a wimp. I learned during my heavily leveraged big mistake business phase that I do not sleep well when things go wrong, while there are monthly loan bills that are still due. But I get great pleasure from cashing rent checks and keeping the proceeds entirely for my family. My analytical side knows that I could make much more income through leverage, but sometimes you can afford the analytical side be damned. When? See the next point. Number 2, I already have enough income. Once the groceries and property taxes and the family trips are paid for, the marginal utility of more money drops significantly. If I had more income, I could spend more, which is definitely not interesting. I could save more, which is slightly interesting. I could give more, which is actually quite interesting. But so far, I haven't gone so far as using debt leverage to achieve it. I'd rather achieve more on the production side of things, working hard on things that force me to simultaneously learn and gain skills and earn income as a side effect. Even this blog meets those criteria, although it's heavily tilted towards learning and away from income right now. Not for long, Mr. Money Mustache. Number 3. Paid off assets can replace some of the cash fixed income portion of a retirement portfolio. What is better for a retired person, keeping a $200,000 mortgage on your house and having $200,000 invested in corporate bonds that yield 3.5%, or putting that cash into the mortgage and just having a more stock heavy portfolio? In general, the mortgage is better since its return is 100% guaranteed and there are no income taxes on saved mortgage interest. Number 4, nobody wants to lend me money anyway. During the years since early retirement and before switching to the current all-cash model, I decided to refinance the main house and a few rental houses at various times. As the U.S. credit system tightened, I found it increasingly difficult to qualify for these refinancings, despite the fact that I could prove invested assets greater than the mortgage amounts on the houses. This is because most banks are only set up to handle the typical borrower, someone with lots of income and negligible assets. When they see that my income is relatively low compared to the value of my house, they assume that I could never handle paying a mortgage. So I had to do much more paperwork and work with the special lenders to do these refinancings. Mustachians tend to blow the minds of the regular world because our spreadsheets do not work the same way their spreadsheets do. In the end, I respect the power of leverage, but I also came to appreciate the peace and quiet of cash. But that doesn't mean you can't take a totally different strategy. So that is exactly why I wanted to discuss this article, especially in today's times. Some of this does not apply, mainly the interest rates. I know a lot of people are looking into refinancing right now because interest rates are very low. In fact, I looked into that myself to see if I could save some money on our mortgage. But I like the general sentiment here of this article when it comes to considering your risk tolerance. The math absolutely makes sense when it comes to leveraging your money, but even someone like me who has more than 10 years left before I reach early retirement, I still would not feel comfortable with the extra risk because you just don't know what is going to happen. And today's times is a perfect example of that. You know, this person, Joe, in the article is talking about how rental houses are still great income even if you were to lose your job. But if you take a look at the current circumstances around in the world, people everywhere are losing their jobs. People are getting sick and people are not able to pay rent. So if you are over leveraged in real estate and you're relying on that rental income and all of your renters lose their jobs, then that's going to come back on you as the landlord. So, and when it comes down to paying the mortgage down early, a lot of people don't do that before they enter early retirement. They just take their mortgage payment into their financial independence number calculation. And I can completely understand why a lot of people do that, but I plan on having whatever mortgage we have paid off before I retire early because of situations like this. In a time of crisis and market downturn, your single biggest expense every month is your mortgage. And if you don't have a mortgage to pay anymore, then that allows you to be so much more flexible with your monthly spending than if you still have that mortgage to pay off. So for me, the risk versus reward, it sounds better to me to have the mortgage paid off just in case. It's a sleep well at night factor for me. So let me know down below what you guys think of this article and what your strategy is. Are you going into retirement with a mortgage? Would you reconsider thinking about the current world events going on right now? Do you maybe feel like you should change your strategy? Let me know down below, and I'll see y'all next Monday for the next episode of the Mr. Money Mustache Motivation. Thanks for watching. Bye.